Today's agenda, the first thing we're going to hear today is going to be a House Joint Resolution 1018. After that, we're going to hear 4 bills that will concur on the Senate bills. It's 1161, 1162, 1179, and 1180. Then after that, hopefully we'll get to hear we'll be hearing House Bill 1487. You're making notes, and then after that, hopefully we'll hear Senate Bill 237 and also Senate Bill 346 if we have time to get to those bills this morning. Also, committee members, if you would, and other committee, other legislators in the room, what the committee is, while we're in, when the committee is called to order, if you would, please, if you have any amendments, try to get here and file those amendments with the clerk at least 15 minutes before the committee starts. Also, if you have a question, if you would, instead of approaching the clerk with it, if you would approach the vice chair and relay it to him during the committee meeting. With that said, let's get started with first item on the agenda. Committee members will be House Joint Resolution 1018. Representative Warlaw. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you're here to speak for or against the HJR 1018, the sign-up sheet outside, be sure and take note of that. Also, Representative Warlaw, you're recognized to present your bill and also identify who you have attended the table with you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Jeff Wordlaw, present House Joint Resolution 1018. I have with me Scott Bennett, Director of the Highway Department, and a representative from DFNA.
Joel DePeppa with DFA.
You're recognized, Representative Warlaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee, what we have today is the second part of the highway bill. We passed out the Senate Bill 336 yesterday out of Revenue and Tax. It'll be on the floor tomorrow. This is the second part of the package. When you look back in history, a few of us have been here too long. Back in 2011, we sent the half-cent referendum out to the public, passed with 58%. That tax went for a 4-lane highway grid system. We've watched the Highway Department over the last 7 years develop that 4-lane highway system. They have put every cent of that money to exactly the projects that they showed us on that map. Today I set before you for a permanent fix. The permanent fix is to move this half-cent onto permanent status. That money will be used 50-50 between maintenance and capital improvement projects across the state of Arkansas. It is not designated to a 4-lane highway grid system. It is not designated to one spot in the state, but it is designated to help in all parts of the state. I sit here as a representative from Southeast Arkansas. We feel abused. We feel most of the time that we're not part of the state because we're so not populated. And we have the assurance from the Highway Department that this money will be distributed throughout all 75 counties and used to improve our system everywhere. With that, I'm going to let the director say a few words, and then we'll be happy to take questions from the committee.
Thank you, Representative Wardlaw. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. Representative Wardlaw is right. 58% of the people voted in favor of a half-cent sales tax program. That was a year after 81% of the people voted in favor of an interstate rehabilitation program. In the last, I'd say, 6 to 8 months or so, we've gone around the state and had about 60 meetings with civic clubs, chambers of commerce to present to them our needs and our shortfall and ask them to do a citizens opinion survey. There's overwhelming consensus on 2 different things. Number one, they aren't satisfied with the progress that we're making in highway improvements, and number 2, they support additional highway improvements, and they realize that it will take additional revenue to be able to make those investments. And we have made good progress on our half-cent sales tax program. Every time we've come to report, we've reported on promises made and promises kept, and shown everybody that we have been accountable for the revenue and the opportunities that we've been given. The biggest need that we have now is taking care of our existing system. Weight-restricted bridges that hamper our agricultural industry, roads that are not in good condition. We only have 18% of our highways that are in good condition, and that's really because of revenue that has not kept up with cost increases. So that's the biggest part that we have. Of the packages that are before the legislature now, it's a total of an additional $300 million. About $200 million of that, 2/3 of it, will be spent on taking care of our existing system. We'll be able to improve the pavement condition over 10 years, about 10,000 miles of our 16,000 mile highway system. So you can see that those improvements are going to be spread around all over the state. In addition, we'll be able to continue making some progress on some of our capital improvements that are so vital for economic development. There's been a lot that's been said about temporary increases versus permanent increases. We haven't had a permanent increase since 1999. All of the revenue increases that we've had have been temporary, and we continue to lose ground. I've said many times over the last few years, that if something's not done to give us a permanent and sustainable source of revenue for highway investments, then my job becomes to manage the decline of the highway system. And that's what we've been having to do over the last several years. In the special session in 2016, there were some reforms that were set up. The Highway Commission Review and Advisory Subcommittee was established. We meet with them quarterly, present information on the status of major projects. We presented to them a report that they have accepted on how we develop highway programs and highway projects. We have one of the strongest public involvement programs in the country, as far as being able to have project-specific public involvement, and even when we develop our program, our 4-year construction program, to get that word out to anybody and everybody that will pay attention, at least. So we believe that we've done a good job. We'll continue being accountable for everything, and we look forward to some more discussion on this issue. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if you would, I'd like to add just a little bit.
You're recognized.
We